Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Workers' Mic right here on 720 WGN, powered by the Midwest Coalition of Labor. My name is Ken Edwards with the Midwest Coalition of Labor. Sitting to my left is Ed Maher with the International Union of Operating Engineers, Local 150. Good morning, Ed.
Hey, Ken. How are you?
I'm really good. How are you?
I'm doing great.
We got a big show today.
We do. We have a lot to cover today. We've got a couple of guests. We're going to have Bob Richardson from the Carpenters Union, the Mid-America Carpenters Union, coming on to talk about some job opportunities. I should say career opportunities.
Absolutely.
But if you are interested in possibly getting one of these great union jobs that we're always talking about, you're going to want to listen into that. We've got Bob Richardson coming in soon. And then on the back half of the show, we have Dr. Patty Roberts from Premise Health, kind of continuing some of the focus that we've been putting on healthcare over the last 2 weeks or so.
Yeah, that was really interesting last week, I think.
Yeah.
I enjoyed those conversations.
Got some really nice feedback on that.
Yeah.
And if you didn't hear that, you can, of course, tune into the YouTube channel. Just search for The Workers' Mic, and you'll find that. And then we've also got some good news this week to cover, everything from Mayor Brandon Johnson starting the push to increase minimum wage for tipped workers in the city of Chicago. We got some great news on American manufacturing growth, construction in American manufacturing. Yep. And then if we have enough time, we're going to get into another bad Supreme Court justice. Some bad news for Justice Alito.
Another one.
Yeah, they're kind of stacking up.
Yeah, they're popping up all over the place.
They really are.
Let's start with this, though, if it's okay with you. Yeah, but first, what I would like to call Bring Your Governor to Work Day, and that is Governor Greg Abbott. And he is the governor of Texas, from the great state of Texas. And, he passed, his legislators passed a law that was affectionately known as the Death Star Bill. When you're passing a bill that somebody calls the Death Star Bill, right, it can't be good, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's no good connotation there at all.
And in a nutshell, you guys can look this up, but make it fast. It is a law that Texas passed that enables Texas as the state to go into municipalities and wipe out anything that they do and say, that law that you had on the books, that's gone. We're superseding that and no more local autonomy. So what happened to, no big government and everything is all politics are local and, all that kind of nonsense? Well, that's a thing of the past in Texas. Yep.
Well, that's a really more point. Yeah. I mean, because Texas is notoriously a very, very conservative state. They lead the state, in some of the smaller, more nuanced conservative movements. But when you have places like Austin in Texas that want to do something like, let's say, pass a law to make water breaks mandatory for workers outside in hot temperatures, the state can now just say, you don't have the authority to pass that. We're coming in and we're getting rid of that.
Well, it's funny you should say that, because that's exactly what happened.
Right.
So literally, you can't make this stuff up.
Nope.
There is a heat wave in Texas right now. The temperature the other day broke a record. It was 111 degrees. Mm-hmm. That's just the air temperature. Then a couple of days later, it got shattered again. It was 114 degrees. That's the air temperature, not the heat index. That is just, you walk outside, it's 114 degrees. You might as well walk into an oven. So what does Texas do and Governor Abbott do? He passed a bill that takes away municipalities' rights to pass their own ordinance, which several, like you said, Austin and some other cities had, to give workers
water breaks.
Water.
No time for water.
Yeah.
Back to work.
And he literally said, it creates a mishmash of, problems for businesses.
Right.
Problems for businesses versus giving workers water.
Yeah, I mean.
And you know how many people died, Ed, in the construction industry over like a 7-year period? There's about 150 people died, and those are reported deaths due to heat-related injuries.
Yeah, it's no joke. I mean, even here in Chicago, it's not as hot as Texas, but this is a real problem and something that construction companies put a lot of effort into talking to workers, making sure that they're being hydrated.
And why do you think they literally have water gallons on the side of their trucks where people can go get water? You know, so you have to stay hydrated. And what does Texas do? They literally take that away. And I mean, you could never see this coming. What do you think happened?
Unfortunately, a worker died this week from dehydration, I think heat exhaustion.
Yeah, it was like heat related. They didn't exactly say what it was, but he was a lineman.
Right.
He's literally working, outside electrician, working on a line, which, by the way, I don't believe that you carry water up there. I don't think that you're going to want to be around
Right.
electricity with water. So what does that mean? You probably need to get down from the line and go get a drink of water and get some, cool down for a bit. And this guy worked all day, went home. And he was 35 years old, 35, and he died.
Yeah, a young, healthy person.
Yeah.
They're coming for your water breaks.
It's just mind-boggling to me that a state that professes to be so, anti-big government is going to tell municipalities that you can't allow your workers to have water in the middle of the day.
Yeah.
And it's Texas.
Right.
It's not like it's Minnesota where it's cold all the time. It's actually Texas.
Yeah.
So it's just an evil dude. And, and I don't know if you know this. So he's in a wheelchair. Did you know that?
Greg Abbott, yeah.
Yeah, so he's in a wheelchair. He got hit by a falling tree when he was young, I think like in his teens or maybe early 20s, jogging, of all things. Like a tree fell on him.
Interesting.
Yeah, I mean, talk about random.
Yeah.
A tree fell on him. And what do you think he did? He sued.
Who did he sue?
He sued like the landowner and a utility company, I think, or forestry company or whatever. And I think he got $60 million, and I think he gets $15,000 a month for the rest of his life. And then what do you think his legislation did?
What's that?
They capped punitive damages. They capped damages on lawsuits. So he got all this money. It's good for him. And, it's not good that, he's in a wheelchair for the rest of his life. But,
right.
I call that karma. But he, once again, hey, I got mine and I'm not going to give you yours.
Right.
I can take all the water breaks I want because I can roll myself down the hall and go to the water fountain because I'm working in an air-conditioned office. But you got the linemen outside are working up on trees and working in the hot sun, working on farms and construction sites. No water for you.
Right. Well, what you brought up earlier where you're talking about the concept of local government or big government, I mean, that's something that conservative states talk about a lot, is they don't want big government. But what could be more big government than a town passing some sort of a law that they're trying to protect the workers in their town, and the state just comes in and says, we don't like that. We're undoing, you have the authority to pass laws. Right. Now we have the authority to override your laws.
And it's funny.
And it happens in Indiana. Indiana is notorious for doing this as well.
Is that right?
Yeah, they're going after, at the state level, they've passed a right-to-work law. They've outlawed prevailing wage, the minimum wage for construction workers. And some towns have started to pass responsible bidder ordinances. And
they have their own collective bargaining ordinances. And
right,
like
and it's done at a town-by-town level. And that's a way for towns that don't agree with this kind of stuff to still protect their workforce and make sure that their workers are taken care of.
Yep.
And the state has been going after banning these things for the last couple of years, and it's been defeated a few times in the Indiana legislature over the past couple of years, but it's something they continue to try to do, and it does fly in the face of the sort of idea of small government.
Well, it's funny, Ed, if you remember, for those of us that were paying attention a few years ago under Governor Rauner, tried to pass right-to-work zones, where a municipality could pass its own right to work.
Yeah.
And guess what? That was fine. That didn't create a mishmash of laws.
Oh, my God, yeah. If you had a town where it wasn't right to work, but you had a library district within that town, it would have been the biggest nightmare.
But guess what? Conservatives, right-wing think tanks, they were all about that, right? National right to work, et cetera. I mean, they were literally all about that. And, that wasn't a problem. But, God forbid a town passes a law that says you get water breaks. No, we can't do that. I mean, it's just like constant anti-worker legislation and laws. And from these, unfortunately, these, deep red conservative places. And I just wish that the workers there, it doesn't matter what side of the aisle that you're on or what side of the fence that you're on or which political party you support, you got to support things like water.
Water breaks.
A water break. Yeah, it's pretty generic.
Yeah, you don't see a lot of people setting up marches and hitting the streets against water breaks. So what is the
no agua. Hell no agua.
Yeah, what is the need for for this push against things like water breaks? It's not there.
It's all about big business and they'll sacrifice literally like people dying.
Yeah,
it cost benefit analysis. Like if I take away 7-10 minute water breaks, my percentage of profit will raise by 0.2%, and that's a trillion, whatever it is. It's evil. It's wrong.
Right.
And I wish people would get up and get up in arms in Texas. We have millions of listeners in Texas, obviously. Get up and do something about it.
Right.
Vote these people out.
All right, well, we've got to take a quick break.
On that happy note.
But when we come back, we're going to have Bob Jacobson from the Mid-America Carpenters Union. So if you want to hear more about an opportunity to get into a good union career, stick with us. Yep. We'll be right back here with you in a few minutes with the Workers' Mic on 720 WGN.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Workers' Mic right here on 720 WGN. I'm Ken. This is Ed, and we are thrilled to have Bob Ryder.
Surprise guest
Popped in, which is awesome, and he can do that because he's right here in the city of Chicago. Mm-hmm. Bob is the president, correct?
Yeah.
Of the Chicago
I think that sounds right.
Chicago Federation of Labor, and a card-carrying member of the Operating Engineers.
Yep.
Right?
International Union of Operating Engineers, Local 150, AFL-CIO.
Okay,
We're happy to have you with us, Bob. And on the phone...
Speaking of Bob's,
we have on the phone with us Bob Jacobson, who is the Executive Director of Training for the Mid-America Carpenter Regional Council. Welcome, Bob.
Thanks, guys. Glad to be here.
Yeah, and so, listen, we appreciate your coming on. It's timely, and we wanted to, you to tell us, and also to give you a little help and a shout out. You have an opening right now for apprentices, correct?
We do. We have an opening. We're taking applications for our pre-apprenticeship program currently through July 7th.
So explain, what is pre-apprentice? Because I was down there, by the way, in your facility a few weeks ago, touring it with a college that we're going to enter an agreement with, trying to get college credit for apprentices. And it was really, really cool. And they showed me, what you just said, pre-apprentices. And I'm like, I didn't know you guys had that. So explain what that means.
So we run a 9-week pre-apprentice program that prepares carpenters for the job site and the working conditions they're going to be in the construction industry.
Yep.
So we get them familiar with tools. We do material handling, similar to what they'll be doing on the job site. And it's really just the preparation. In those 9 weeks, we get them some safety training that's beneficial for them and our contractors, for them to be safe on the job site and recognize hazards. But the 9 weeks is really about preparing them to get out there on the job site and be ready to work day one for our contractors.
Okay.
So, but let me ask you, is it like a trial period? Like, do some people blow out of this thing?
We do. Some unfortunately sign up and put in an application, and unfortunately, some people don't realize that as a carpenter, you might be working out in the Chicago winter.
Right.
You might be working in the mud. You might be working in the rain.
Sure.
So some people don't recognize what it might entail.
It's hard work.
Absolutely, and that's the work that's needed. Some people get into it not realizing that it's not for them. So we do lose some, but it's not a trial period.
Okay.
They come in. We have no age restriction for anyone that's applying.
You have to have an age restriction.
You have to be at least 18, right?
Well, they have to be 17 to
17,
apply. But
okay.
as far as a maximum age, so we have people that are looking at even second careers.
Oh, really? Wow.
Bob Ryder.
Bob, we're not taking 12-year-olds or 14-year-olds like.
Well, no,
this is not Iowa.
Right? Yeah.
I mean, depending on what industry you have have union members as young as
14, 15.
Well, younger than that is like my
shopping
daughter,
carts at Jewel and
my daughter recently got her work permit. She's 14 years old. She's hopefully going to get her first job as a member of SAG-AFTRA once she gets she successfully gets a part in a commercial or some sort of production. But yeah, I mean, you have union members that are of all ages. And I get it just real quick on this. I've got several family members, including members of my wife's family, that are members of the Carpenters Union, which is I think when people think of the Carpenters, they think about 2x4s and pounding nails in the frame of house, but it's like every trade, it includes so much more, and the amount of skill and craftsmanship and the amount of structural integrity that so many of our buildings and bridges and overpasses, from framing concrete to framing houses.
Yep.
I mean, these working in the trade show industry.
Right.
I mean, it's a
very diverse career.
Very diverse career.
And Bob Jacobson, speak to that for a second, because people always, knock the building trades like, oh, these guys are, just, paid with a lot of money to, pick up a shovel. When I was at your facility, I mean, there was an amazing amount of math and science and physics that went into, your training. Can you speak to that for a second?
Absolutely. Math is really the backbone of most construction, and a lot of people and don't realize that geometry plays a huge part with construction and building, and like you mentioned, the different crafts. It's not just home builders. It's the high-rise construction. It's the concrete work. So it's a very diverse opportunity for people too. So it's not, hey, I don't like working with wood. Well, there's plenty of other options for them to get into, and the specialty trades with flooring and mill cabinets. We really have a huge amount of opportunity.
And Bob, when do you become a journeyman in the Carpenters? How many years?
So our apprenticeship it's a 4-year apprenticeship.
Okay.
So that's a combination of school and on-the-job training.
Got it.
So over those 4 years, our apprenticeship is set up that they come for 1 week every quarter. And get training in different aspects of carpentry.
Yep.
And then they're out on the job, working for one of our signatory contractors, working with other apprentices, working under journeymen who are showing them the tips, techniques, and how to be better carpenters in their career.
And so let's talk dollars and cents. What does a first-year apprentice make?
So starting out first-year apprentice right now in the commercial industry is making $21.40 in wages. And on top of that, they get benefits.
Right out of the gate, they get benefits. Right?
Benefit package, you're looking at health coverage. You're looking at a pension, an annuity. We have a vacation fund.
Yep.
And as an apprentice, those benefits are the same as they are for every member. So
Right.
they're not, while the wages are 40% of what a journeyman makes, your benefit package is the full amount of what every member gets.
Guys, think about this for a second. The Carpenters Union is probably one of the most diverse unions that we have in the Chicago area. I'm not qualifying that by saying one of the most diverse unions in the building trades. One of the most diverse unions. A lot of people of color in the Carpenters Union. Providing, a union contract which doesn't discriminate,
Right.
Right.
in terms of pay and benefits or anything else, based on, what gender you are, what ethnicity or race you are. This is a great opportunity, and think
Right.
about the fact that the benefits that an apprentice gets, which is health care, retirement security. They're earning their way up, and their wages go up as they become a journeyman.
Right.
But think about that opportunity that's there for folks who live on the west and the south side of Chicago.
No, I absolutely agree with you, and that dovetails nice into why you're here today. But Bob Jacobson, quickly, how much does a journeyman carpenter make here in Chicagoland?
Right now, the current journeyman's making over $51 an hour in
Wow.
wages.
And the health care, the pension, the vacation fund, that's all on top of that. So that $51 an hour, you're not getting a deduction on your check for health care. You're not getting a deduction for pension. That's what you make in wages, and then everything else is on top of that, right?
Absolutely. That is the wages, obviously minus taxes that you're taking home, and all of those benefits are above and beyond.
And that's straight time. So if you're working overtime, obviously it's time and a half or double time, correct?
Absolutely.
And so, you're talking about a substantial amount of money when work is good, and we think, work is going to be good for quite some time.
But Ken, when work slows down, which it inevitably does when you have a recession and all that, those wages help buffer against those times when there's just a dip in the industry.
Absolutely.
So these are
save for a rainy day,
Yep,
right?
Yep.
So hey, Bob Jacobson, how does one apply?
So, again, right now we're open with our application through July 7th.
Okay.
They can apply at our Elk Grove Training Center. We're there from 9:30 to 3 accepting applications.
Okay.
Again, if they're 17 or older, they can apply. They need to bring in with them with the application, a high school diploma, a GED, or a transcript showing 8 credits of high school.
Yep.
We need an Illinois ID or a driver's license, some form of government ID, a Social Security card, and a $25 cashier check or money order.
And they have to physically come in, right?
Yep. So we've got it set up now that they come over to the Elk Grove facility with all of that.
And you can't do it online.
We do not.
Okay. So what's the address of the Elk Grove facility?
It is 1256 Estes Avenue, and that's in Elk Grove Village.
Okay.
All right.
Perfect.
That sounds like a great opportunity.
Yeah.
Ken, just think if you had better math skills, this could be a great opportunity for you, too.
Stuck with this radio and lawyer gig.
If I had any kind of skills.
Bob Jacobson.
Yeah, Bob, we really appreciate your coming on
today. We've got to wrap and head into commercial, but thank you so much. And, folks, we're always talking about good union jobs. Here's an opportunity for you.
Go get it.
So
thanks,
you
Bob.
again, Bob.
And we will be right back right here on 720 WGN Workers' Mic. Welcome back, everyone, to the Workers' Mic right here on 720 WGN. I'm Ken. Sitting next to me is Ed. And as we talked about earlier, we're extremely happy to have Dr. Patty Roberts from Premise Health to talk about, we've been having these conversations for a while now about this sort of disruptive model of providing health care, not only obviously to union members, but throughout the country and how well it's working. So welcome, Dr. Patty Roberts.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
And you're the Vice President of Medical Operations and the Regional Medical Director for Premise. Is that right?
That's right, I am.
So what region?
The Central region, otherwise known as the Midwest.
Very good.
All right. Well, that's right. That's in our wheelhouse. Midwest Coalition of Labor. So are you over any of the union's facilities here in the Chicagoland area?
I am, all of them. I'm very excited to support them. I come from a family of automotive workers, so
nice.
Union workers are near and dear to my heart. So I was very glad to support our providers, who then support all of your workers.
So what the conversations that we had last week on the show focused around things from psychiatric health to even like looking into somebody's zip code to determine what their immediate medical needs might be based on where they live compared to a different neighborhood, like food insecurity or transportation problems or things like that. And I think those aren't typically what people think of when they think of the medical field. And that's what makes Premise really, really unique, is treating the root problem rather than just testing for problems later on down the road. But as a regional medical director, can you tell us a little bit more about the whole approach that you take, and then what kind of data you're able to collect that shows that this is really a better way of doing it?
Sure. I think that it starts with having a member. We say member instead of patient, but having a member-centered approach where everything we do is around that person that's in the center. Where are they at? What are their needs? As opposed to injecting our agenda. Certainly, we're going to try to get them in for things like mammograms and colonoscopies and other screenings, but we're meeting them where they're at. And some of that is understanding where they came from and things like you mentioned, the data behind what zip code they might live in or what their individual struggles are.
I like that you just called them members instead of patients.
Yeah,
I mean that's really cool, by the way, and I think it makes a difference. Your direct healthcare model, I think we talked about this last week, is what Premise I believe is called value based versus fee for service. Am I right about that?
You are correct. Yeah, it is, and so. Some people might have heard of a direct care model. Sometimes you hear it mentioned as concierge medicine, and you might have heard, those types of practices. And before I joined Premise Health, I had my own practice for a while and kind of looked at that, like, should I switch over to that? Because it's difficult to run primary care in this current insurance environment. And,
right.
those models are great. They're great experience for people who have the luxury of being able to afford.
I was about to say, when you say concierge doctors, it's like, that just seems anathema to the I don't know, what is it called, the Hippocratic Oath. I mean, that's like, I'm going to treat you, but you have to have a certain level of income, and your yacht needs to be bigger than 100 feet. I mean, that's just the word concierge medical. It just sounds terrible. And so, I think what you guys do is absolutely different. I've experienced it myself. Ed's experienced it. Thousands of our members that are listening have experienced it. But let me ask you this question, right? So you said you had your own practice. So how long have you been a doctor, by the way?
Oh, that's mean. 28 years.
Oh, boy. Oof. Wow.
But I admitted it, at least. I did have my own practice, and I looked at that concierge model because it is amazing care, right? You've got 24 hours access. You've got, everything's around you. You've got longer appointments. You all the focus is on them. But I agree with you. It's a bougie way to deliver care. It's not right. And coming from my background, I didn't want to have my practice filled with that type of patient. I very, very intentionally selected to work for Premise Health because of the way that we support workers and provide that. It's really that level of care and more than you would get at these really high-end practices, as you know, because you've been there, right?
Well, no, I've never been on the 1% concierge plan, but I have been on the construction, union plan. But I will tell you this: what you guys are doing, first of all, is absolutely fantastic. Second of all, it's I've said this. I said it last week. I've said it since day one. It's why we decided the MCL to partner with Premise versus other opportunities. I think it's why a lot of unions are partnering with Premise. Because the feeling that you get when you walk into that office is just different than going to a doctor. I don't know how else to put it. It's just more welcoming. Right. And and our doctor, I'll just use ours as an example. We affectionately call this guy Dr. C, mostly because we can't pronounce his last name.
It's Dr. Cassiklang. It's not that tough.
Yeah, well,
shout out to Dr. C.
Yeah, but like he'll physically call you and go like, "Hey, Ken, you should be coming in for your next checkup."
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like where do you get that from a doctor's office? You usually have to call them and go like, "Hey, can I get in there?" And they're like, "Yeah, you can in about 6 months."
Right, take a number.
And so let's pivot for a quick second. We talked about data, right? And we had a really interesting conversation last week with Maria Romano from Premise Health about health equity and explaining the zip code. And Ed made a point that, in a zip code, I don't know, whatever, 5 miles from where we're sitting here today, they might be worried about braces. Move 7 miles down the road, and they're worried about being able to feed themselves, right? So how does data play, what is it, how does it work for data with you guys?
Being able to meet members where they are.
Yeah, explain that.
Yeah, I know Maria probably did a great job talking about those social determinants of health, those things that impact our ability to be healthy, to seek health care, to seek treatments, and to make healthy changes are certainly impactful. So we see that data. The other way it really helps is that little mystery call that you got from Dr. C saying, hey, it looks like you're due to come in. Some of that data that we use is, so if we know someone has hypertension or diabetes, we've got a list that's constantly running, in our computer system that when you're due to come in, as good as Dr. C is, he's also getting triggered by that data saying, hey, he's overdue. We got to get him in, or you're overdue.
That's interesting. So yeah, I get it. So your data basically is giving him a reminder like, hey, this person has high blood pressure and he should be getting checked every blanket amount of months, and maybe we should tweak his medicine and blah, blah, blah. So the data actually drives him to pick up that phone and call and go, hey, Ken, you need to come on in here. It's time for you to get blank done. Right? Am I getting that right?
You are, and it's even more detailed than that, because if the last time you were in, your blood pressure was normal, we're not going to fire again that you need to come in for a year. If it's normal. But if it was abnormal, it's going to fire for him over and over and over till you get back in. So it stays on it. it's amazing. I know when we bring physicians in and they see how it works, or nurse practitioners, they're like, wow, this makes it really easy.
Right.
We know who's overdue for things, and who has needs that we can help them address.
One of the things that I've always noticed, and this is with the Operators Health Center that's run by Premise, that's available to operating engineers, but I assume that you take the same approach probably in most of your centers, is if someone comes in and they have, if they're overweight, it's, usually the doctor will say, try to lose 15 pounds, see you next year. But you guys have resources to, to get on weight loss programs with coaches and mentors, and the same goes for diabetes. And so it's like, do this, it's free. Someone will call in, check in with you every week. It's an app you can do on your phone. So I know probably 20 or 30 members of Local 150 who've gone to see a doctor, maybe hadn't seen a doctor in a couple of years, gone in to see the doctor, gotten, the talking to about their weight being a little bit high, gotten on the program and lost 30 or 40 pounds. And you see them at next month's union meeting and they're happier, they're healthier. It's like a new person. But you really fill the gaps between those annual appointments by actually caring and trying to stay up on people and really embracing this whole theory that I think used to be called wellness.
Yeah, I think what's it called? Yeah, it's a holistic approach. I think, which is what they've been pounding into us to say this. But you're right, it does work, right? So you can come in for just your checkup, and by the way, as we were talking last week, you might want to step down the hall and see a psychologist for a second, right? Because it sounds like you might be have a little depression or whatever. So
it really is impacting the rest of your health.
But it's look, in my opinion, part of the beauty of these clinics are they're pretty much one-stop shopping, right? Now you're going to obviously send people out for surgery and things of that nature if they need it, but for the rest of it, like you guys take care of a ton of stuff that normally, a doctor's going to charge you, a fee for every single test he does and send you down the hall to his partner who might not even be in network and blah, 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 so your approach is different. Do you enjoy working there? Like, is this something that, you feel like you feel like you made a good decision instead of going with the concierge business?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. We love the members that we serve, which is, I think, that piece of versus concierge, but yet it's giving that sort of level of care where, it's a one-stop shop. We're able to take care of I want to say all the needs. As you said, we're not doing surgery in the back office or anything,
right.
but we are able to fully encompass and sit down. We have longer appointments.
Yes, you do.
That access is, we've opened up access. It's free, right? Like it can't get any more accessible than that.
Free's a good price. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, by the way, you still have problems getting people into the office, right? Hey, buddy, it's free. Like, hey, brother, come on in. It's free. Oh, I'm really busy.
Can you come pick me up?
Yeah. Can you put one in my backyard and then maybe I'll go? But so, that's why we're opening more offices. Listen, we really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us. We're pretty much out of time. But we've been talking to Dr. Patty Roberts, who is the Vice President of Medical Operations and Regional Medical Director at Premise Health, which is obviously one of our
sponsors of the show.
An enormous one, and a company that I just think the world of. So, Dr. Roberts, we really appreciate you taking the time to come on with us. Absolutely. All right. Well, listen, you've been listening to Dr. Roberts from Premise Health right here on 720 WGN. We'll be right back.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Workers' Mic here on 720 WGN. Hope you've enjoyed the show so far. We had a couple of really interesting
that was
guests.
Interesting. Yep.
Absolutely.
I love it.
I think the Carpenter's opportunity especially, I thought that was fantastic, and I hope some of our listeners have an opportunity to
I've got a ton of calls, I think
that.
I've told you, of people calling, going like, hey, how do I get my kid into the trades? How do I get my grandkids into the trades? So, the more of this stuff that we can get out there and push, I think the better it is, both for the trades, quite frankly,
right,
because we need bodies at the moment because of the bipartisan infrastructure bill, and for, young men and women that, might not want to take on college debt.
Right.
Like we heard months ago. So anyway, let's talk some good news. You said that Mayor Brandon Johnson is trying to pass.
Yeah, this week the push for tipped workers in the city of Chicago to make the same minimum wage as every other business, formally began in the city council. And I think there are actually a lot of people that don't know that tipped workers, the folks who, visit your tables at restaurants or bartend, whatever, they don't make the same minimum hourly wage as everybody else.
I remember back in the day, it used to be like they get $2 an hour or something like that. And I think that has risen, to like whatever, $8 or $9 or something. But it's still not enough to feed your family. So people are like, oh my God, I have to tip on top of, whatever, all this other stuff. Well, that's how they make their money.
For sure. And there are skeptics out there who would say they're getting tips. But the reality is in a lot of restaurants, those tips get pooled.
Of course.
And whoever the supervisor or, the manager is, they break those tips up however they want to do it. And they can take some for the restaurant. I think, when I tip a server for great service, I want them to have the money. The money is for them.
And obviously you want people behind the scenes to have a piece of the pie as well, like the busboys
for sure.
and the runners and things like that. But to raise this up to regular city of Chicago minimum wage, by the way, because we don't have a Death Star bill here, right? Would be $15 and change, right?
Yeah, $15.80 is what the city's minimum wage will be on July 1st.
And that's like an automatic $4 or $5 an hour increase. No, like a $6 an hour increase.
Right.
I'm no mathematician, but for workers, and that's nothing to sneeze at over the course of a week. So that I think kudos to the mayor, who I have taken to task on a couple of things, but I am for the working people, and if he's doing that, good for him.
Right.
So so that's some good news. Hope it passes.
Right.
We have some other good news that you mentioned, and that is manufacturing.
Yeah.
Coming back to America.
You're absolutely right.
Holy cow.
So whoever would have thought it.
Right.
And the news actually came from an economist that was on Morning Joe one day this week, and he worked in the Obama administration, and I think before that he worked under George Bush too.
Right.
And they're calling this a boom in annual manufacturing construction.
It's amazing.
So this is construction of new manufacturing plants. Throughout most of the 2010s, the national annual spending on manufacturing construction was between $80 and $100 billion routinely. And right now, they're saying that for the next several years, it's going to average about $190 billion a year for manufacturing construction in the United States.
Awesome.
That's a doubling. And I think if we're looking at, whether it's battery plants or, natural gas or whatever, like any kind of manufacturing or the components for like energy production.
Well, these chip manufacturings that they're trying to, back to resource back into the United States, stuff that we need to do to be self-sufficient, not to rely on China or India or any other countries.
Right.
I think makes perfect sense. It's smart. And what
bringing
does it do?
manufacturing back to America.
Well, bringing manufacturing back to America is enormous. And what does that do? You almost get 2 for 1, Ed, because you have the construction of these facilities, right, which creates thousands and thousands and thousands of construction jobs. And then after that, you have the tooling up of these things. So you have machines and people that operate machines and make the machines. And then you actually have the actual manufacturing itself. Assembly lines and these things humming. And this literally creates an economy in the United States.
Right.
So hopefully they don't screw this up.
Well, it's big news. I mean, just real quick, about 2 weeks ago in Indiana, New Carlisle, Indiana, it's right over by South Bend, they announced that GM and Samsung were going to be investing, I think, $3.5 billion into a battery manufacturing plant out there. And it's going to, we're already in the operating engineers ramping up recruitment of apprentices to have the workforce to build this, but it's going to create 1,800 permanent jobs there as well in an area that could use it. So this is all good news, and manufacturing sounds like it may be coming back in the United States.
Well, first of all, it's about time.
Right.
Right? I mean, it should. And I'm sick and tired of buying a shirt made in China.
Right.
Not because I want to, but because literally it's damn near impossible to find clothing made here in America. And all of a sudden now, and I want to stay on this topic for a second, you're starting to see, companies like American Clothing Company, and I think the other one is Union Rootswear or something like that. Or is that the name of it? Stars and Stripes right here in Chicago.
Yeah, one of the sponsors of the show is manufacturing clothes right in Bridgeport.
Absolutely. And,
Bridgeview.
Here's one, Dearborn Denim right here in Chicago. Right. They just built a new facility. They make stuff right here. You're starting to see, slowly anyway, but increasing, companies putting back the sticker that says proudly made in the United States.
Right.
Right. And
it's a good thing. People like it.
It's a great thing. So, it's nice to end on a positive note.
Absolutely.
Because, I'm tired of trashing politicians and companies, but we're headed in the right direction in that regard. So, in some ways, we can't drink water on the job anymore. Bad. Jobs coming back to America. Good. Right. So I don't know. Cost benefit.
All right. Well, we are out of time this week. So thank you for staying with us here on the Workers' Mic. And we'll be back with you next week right here on 720 WGN.